Hello everybody, Tom Matuska and Brett Wingfield here with the Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company, Thursday afternoon Facebook Live. And we hope you enjoy our segment last week and all the segments that we do. We try to bring you new and exciting vistas in the world of taxidermy. And I'd like to take this opportunity too to say thank you to Caitlin. Caitlin is our little production manager here, and she's a little on the shy side, but she is in charge of the sound. She's in charge of the cameras. She has more buttons and knobs back there to turn, and cords and lights, mixers and matchers, switchers and camera thingers, and Caitlin, you better come here and show me.
No, no way.
And thank you for everything you do. Anyway, she prefers to stay out of the limelight, but she does an awful lot around here, and thank you. I just thought I would bring that up.
Thank you.
And last week, if you joined us, we showed you our method of pouring a wood duck head. Them, but that's how it was done, and we showed you last week. If you want to tune in to last week's segment, you can find it on YouTube or on our Facebook archives. I'm not sure I'm saying that right.
I think you got it.
And look at how we did it. Now the interesting thing was when we skinned that bird, we left the head and the neck attached, and what that's good for, and what it's especially good for beginners and novice taxidermists, is it shows a union between the head and the neck, which is absolutely critical to reconstruct that and reconstruct that angle, because a lot of people will get a bird mounted and they did everything right, but it just doesn't look, something doesn't look wood ducky or mallardy or pheasanty or whatever it happens to be. And a lot of times it's the way that neck comes out of the head. It can only, those vertebrae can only come out of that, atlas joint one way and out of that skull. And by keeping it together, we poured that whole thing, which is different than most people would do. And we
presented a challenge or two.
What did we do? We put it in the freezer, did we not? Refrigerator.
Refrigerator, yeah.
Because we were gone for the weekend. We let it sit Friday for everything to cure. We were gone for the weekend, and even taking it out of the refrigerator Monday morning, it was fragrant.
It was. It's
and
still
so
a little today.
Show them what we got. And this was the mold. We put boards, and we probably didn't have to, boards on each side of it, but we like to rubber band it together. And when you rubber band it together, the rubber band, cuts into the rubber a little bit and binds it just a little. So that's the reason for the little pieces of plywood on each side. But we traced around, and you can look back, we traced around, what did we do it on? Yeah, and then we, of the bird, posed him in the pose we wanted, traced around it. Then we made a dam around that we could, a dam of tin, printer's tin, and we fastened that, we hot glued it down to the base, so you don't want to, when your rubber starts leaking and you spring a leak, you're never going to stop it. You're going to be pouring in more rubber, Before we started pouring the rubber, we put a pin through the sidewall into the back of the skull where you could cut, and you cut that apart Monday morning.
Yep, there's where the pinhole was.
Yep.
Right there.
And we took the real head and neck out. That went to the dumpster. And then
Quickly.
You washed it out.
Real good.
Real good. Cleaned it up. And then we poured one.
Yeah.
And we actually poured a few of them just to show you, how it works. And we use a product called Super Polycast, I believe it is. And it's a 2-part urethane, similar to polyurethane foam, but it doesn't foam, it stays white. And every company carries some kind of urethane. Smooth On has several different kinds. Lumilite has several different kinds. Most companies have some sort of a urethane, and they all have different characteristics. They set up in, some set up in a minute, some set up in 5 minutes, some set up in 10 minutes, some set up crystal clear, some of them set up in 2 days, you know. So they all have their different attributes. Super Polycast sets up in, what would you say, 3 minutes to 5?
I'd say, yeah.
3 to 5. Cold sets up slower. Warm sets up faster. The color is very, very white. Comes out of the mold flexible until the heat dissipates, and then it firms up. All of our bird head products that we make of Wildlife Illusions are all made with Super Polycast, and it's a snow white color, and it's the one urethane, casting urethane, that doesn't turn yellow in time. So that's kind of important for us. You'll see a lot of people make artificial deer antlers, and they come out beautiful to start with, and 3 years later, after they've colored them and stained them and everything, they have an orangey cast, and it's because your urethane underneath is yellowing, and it will continue yellow. We've got things in storage, bird heads that we used to make, and artificial antlers and urethane cast parts that have turned orange.
Cabela's had 1,500 sets of them that we had to dispose of that were just no good because over time they turned orange.
Then you learn to paint. Well, why don't you show us what happened here when we poured A and B polyurethane, or urethane, casting urethane, I think I should say, into that mold, and we put a mold release in first.
We did, and actually, I might back up for 1 second. When we poured this, we poured it in one solid pour. So we encased the whole head. We actually had to, in rubber. Once that set up, this was completely one piece.
Good point.
We had to use that index mark that you talked about in the back of the head to determine our parting line. And we had to cut this. So that parting line there was actually cut.
And we have a unique tool for that.
We cut it with a little knife that's got a little kink in it, and it just indexes back together. It's pretty handy for rubber molds.
Mold key knife, so it leaves a channel on one side and a rib on the other that fits together.
And that way this comes back together relatively close each time. And then we were able to pour it. We left one in here for you. Poured one, left it in, so we'll take that out quick. Kate, I don't know if you can see this, but just gonna try to get that out of there for him. There we go. And there it is.
Now that came out pretty nice. And that's the whole thing. Like we said, you wouldn't at home need the neck on. We did it mainly to show you the union because we thought it was kind of neat when we had it there.
You want to show them the neck union and some of the stuff that was important that we kept?
We just, this head to neck is, I think, very, very, very important. The trachea was a nice touch that shows the alignment of the trachea. We also took a fine insulin syringe and filled the eyes, put pressure into the eyes, and I thought one worked really well and one did not work so well, but I thought that was kind of important because I knew we were going to Dremel out those eyes and we were going to insert acrylic eyes, so by indexing those where they were in nature, we just put a little pressure in them, and when we molded it, that came out really, really nice.
That will show them on another piece here shortly. I think that's one of the nicer things. When we're setting our own eyes, we have an index of where that original eye should be, so you don't have to do anything. This is interesting. I just pulled this out. We had some pins in holding it
him
in
up.
place.
Yeah, when we laid him down, look, last week, we had those little pins
Yeah.
up from the bottom.
And they were here on the side, and this one, this is a piece of plastic that filled in that pinhole. So you'll actually have those. Another thing worth noting for them is we made this in the pressure pot, which pushed all of that fluid
Detailing, right.
into. Yep. So we poured this, quick put it in a pressure pot, and it forced all of the resin into the detail of the mold.
And you can Google pressure pots. Pressure pots, if you're going to be making a lot of, casting a lot of your own parts, a pressure pot is you're going to want one at some point. And I don't know, we add 50 pounds of pressure to our pot, and it's nothing more than a paint pot. You can Google them online and look at them, and there's lots of directions. I think Illuminate shows you how to use a pressure pot. They've got YouTube videos and things like that. But that's how you get that detail of that pin.
Yeah, and it had every one of them pushed all the way out. And we've done that on live. We showed our pressure pot. We brought it upstairs once prior. So
another thing we got with this cast was, which is really, really critical for mounting an accurate bird, look at the ear holes. The ear holes are represented here exactly where they were. And I don't know, I find it pretty advantageous when I'm mounting a bird. There's things you know and there's things you don't know. It's easy to align the skin on the bill relatively because you know your shapes and you can align your skin on the bill. You know where your eye goes because you're going to have a glass eye in there put back right exactly where it was, or where the manufacturer, told you where theirs was. But that ear hole is very important to me because it dictates how the skin can be taxied back here. Because if your ear skin is locked into the ear hole, you're not so apt to misalign that skin.
Yep.
I can do it.
I can misalign it anyway.
It'll be easier for you. And those are just guidelines to go by. So we took this out of the mold, the silicone mold. Now that silicone mold is good for how many?
Oh boy.
Several,
but
you do lose detail in time.
Yeah.
Our third one was probably not as good as our first.
Yep.
Still customer acceptable if we were going to do that. But if we were going to make a bird head, I wouldn't go to this much trouble for one. We're doing it for you. We're doing one bird head to show you how to do it. But if you wanted to, and I even talked to Corey about it, he didn't mind you making your own bird heads. I said, here we are. We carry the best artificial bird parts in the world, and we're showing people how to make them. And he said, that's okay. He's okay with that.
And once they see how much work this is,
It's a lot of work.
They might think that it's not that big a deal.
So if you wanted to, you would take this, which is very accurate, but very rough also. I mean, there's tissue built up here, and there's dips and dents from the molding process. You cut the neck off, and then why don't you take them from there? What you did with this to get where we're at now.
Well, should we pour one quick while it sets up?
Yes, we can do that. We can do that.
Let me borrow your release over there. We're going to put a mold release. Do you want to shoot a little in there?
This is Isocoat 531 mold release. It's a really nice mold release. It's actually wax in an aerosol, and we use it around the shop. We go through a case.
Oh man, I just brought two of them up.
Okay, now I'm just going to spray it in. You only need a light dust, and I'm sure I'm going to get more than I need.
I've heard you call this liquid insurance before. Insurance that are...
Are you sure?
I think so. But yeah, that's just going to ensure that our part comes out because without tearing much detail or doing much damage to the mold.
Are we ready to do it?
Yes. I bet you want one of those, though.
Okay, now, this is A and B super polycast, and I just poured a couple of half paper cups. Too much, really. And I'm gonna, to mix them, I'm just gonna go A into B and B into A, and I'll stir it up here in a minute. Now we have, I'd say, 4 minutes for sure.
I would say so, yeah.
Stir it well.
And are we just going to make a head for them?
Let's just make a head. Because of that S turn,
Yep.
can be difficult to cast.
The S turn that he's referring to is here. So if you look at the orientation of the head in the mold, we have it like this. So when I part that mold for Tom to pour into, we're going to pour from the bottom of the bill down here, and we'll just fill this side of the cavity rather than trying to get all of this poured in one pour.
Okay, now I can feel this starting to heat up. When it starts to heat up, it's time for you to go into action. Ready?
Yep. So, and it's very hard to show.
Good to go?
Yeah, pour, pour, pour. And I'm going to close that up a little, and then we'll dump back forward to it.
Good?
Yep, yep. And now I'm going to hold that closed, and I'm going to tip it just so, and tap.
Just because of our neck, because we had some that settled down in here. So he's tipping it this way so that it'll run down into that head cavity.
Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and put the boards on this to help us hold it upright. Thank you. Perfect. And now I'm just going to tip it and kind of tap on it, trying to get some of that air that may be trapped in it to follow back up the neck cavity.
If you don't have a pressure pot, just tapping it, just think about air bubbles. Air bubbles are going to work their way up.
Okay. And that should be pretty good. I think we're, how's your cup? Is it starting to set yet?
Yes. Now here's what
Okay.
the cup looks like.
I think we're over there.
Turning white, snow white, and it's hot. It's so hot that it's melting the cup. So when you have thin areas of the mold, like around the edge of the cup, I can see that's not setting up quite as fast. As the center gets hotter, the outside will set up also.
Yep.
So that is how we pour it. We use super polycast. We make lots of stuff. We've made
Oh boy.
hippopotamus tusks, teeth, whole teeth sets for hippopotamus. Remember we used to sell them?
Yes, I
We
do.
dreaded every time that somebody would order a set of
Yep.
hippopotamus teeth because it'd take a whole gallon, at least a
Oh,
gallon
man.
kit of super polycast to pour, and then we would stain
Yep.
it with wood stains, stain them
Yep.
for people.
Did
I
a
was
lot
pretty
of
happy
those.
when that mold broke down because we didn't have to make them anymore. We have made, we'll show you eagle feet.
We made eagle feet, eagle heads. We've made, fish heads. We've made all kinds of stuff with super polycast.
There, am I hot?
I think so.
My wife says
I
so,
think
too.
you're on.
Says that all the time.
I think. No, I think you're all hooked up there.
I'm really hooked up.
So now we're going to let this sit, and anytime we make something, sometimes you'll make them out of Bondo, sometimes you make them out of polycast, you want to make sure that the part has completely set up all the way to the outside edge before we try and demold it, because that will damage your finish if it's not quite set up yet.
In this business and in the molding and casting business, patience is a virtue.
Oh my gosh. you've told them this before too. It's so fun. It's like you had described trapping. You just want to open up.
Can't
that mold.
wait,
You
see what
wanna
we caught.
See what's in there, but be patient.
And just remember, your first one is going to be your best one.
Yep.
So put all your effort into that first one. If you have to go to a second one, you'll be fine, but it's possible it's not going to be as good as the first one. So.
Yeah. And so, so you don't have to watch us. I have a few here, and I'm not sure, these are white, so it might be hard for them to see some of the detail in that. But this is what it looked like when it came out. You talked about the head and neck union and all that good stuff. So
Now you could mount on that neck. You could use that, right? You could
if
leave
it was
on
exactly what you wanted,
and build it up
absolutely.
a little bit?
Yeah. Yep. You'd smooth it out maybe a little here and there and make it cosmetically nice. But yeah, absolutely. That's
Now,
as
the thing
accurate as
that,
it gets.
And there's going to be no movement in it, really.
Right.
Notice on these, I am convinced that the minute this bird hit the ground, he begins to not be as big as what he was.
Oh,
you know, they talk about
sure.
ground shrink. I think when blood pressure's gone, I really think things start diminishing a little bit. If you wanted to, you could take a heat gun and you could warm this up, and you could, I'm sure you can pose this a little bit if you get it nice and warm.
I bet you could. Making sure that now when you manipulate something with a heat gun, you have to make sure that you're still manipulating it where it could physically move rather than where it couldn't move now that it's plastic.
Don't make his bill go like this, or
Yeah, we could.
like one of those cranes.
We could turn his bill up.
Okay, from that this morning, you took one, and we're kind of, again, we always refer to the cooking show because we can't wait for things to dry and things to set up. So why don't you show them and explain to them what you did from here on?
So just to give you something to look at, we took the bill that was originally like that one there, and the first thing we did was cut the neck off. Went over to the bandsaw, marked our head union where the neck joins the head, and then we came up under the esophagus and we just removed that. So in our mount, we aren't intending to use this. We are going to use it as a reference, for reference material, but we remove that so that we just have the artificial head. There were some little cosmetic things that we did to even out some of the symmetry. We did a little bit of that with clay, with the epoxy clay. I shouldn't call it epoxy clay. I should call it clay, K-L-E-I.
K-L-E-I.
Because it sets up fast, it sands nice, it's easy to manipulate. And then one of the fun things was we were able to use this eye that came out in the mold that Tom injected, and we were able to use that as a guide to set this eye. And so we drilled it out. We drilled out the old eye, the original eye from the cast. And then we replaced it with one of the live eyes. And
there's a whole selection of eyes you can choose. You can pick your favorite eyes. You can, Europe eyes have been a favorite of, everybody's. We have live eyes, which are digitally, the image is digital, and it's extremely fine and a good image.
Maybe 3 different versions of them. You said go down and get some eyes. I went downstairs and I went, oh my gosh.
Of live eyes, yeah. We got a lot of wood duck eyes.
A lot of wood duck eyes.
And you got Tohican glass eyes, the finest glass eyes you're ever going to find. We also brought up, and you might want to do this, Wayne Cooper flex eyes. The flex wood duck eyes, you have the eye ring on there, and so you could put those in there also.
Yeah. Maybe we should show them a reference picture as to what we were looking for with that eye ring. Most of these guys probably know all about that, but
Zoom in on this if we can. These are, I think, Phil Wilson pictures. Is that correct?
I think so.
And Let me go down. Am I doing good? Let me tip that way. This is a zoom in on that eye if you can, and you'll see the eye ring, the real fleshy eye ring, which is so typical of a wood duck. And we never used to put those on, and our wood ducks never looked like wood ducks.
I will point right there, that little fleshy edge.
And it can be pretty big. And looking at some of these really high-res detailed pictures, I see yellow in them. There's some yellow in them. There's some orange in them. There's some red in them. So don't get pigeonholed into one color. There's a lot of detail in
really
here.
Puffy and full and
Look at this one.
very, very.
This one is all kinds of lumps and bumps and
Yeah, yep.
bulbous areas of that eye.
And those don't come out in the cast. So when we made this artificial head, we don't have any, that was actually a part of the skin. That
Right.
came off with the skin.
And it's on the skin.
Yep.
Now, so would you like to show them how to drill out for an eye instead of an eye?
Sure.
Can you do it?
Yeah, I think so. That's scary. We did that on this one already, and one of the things that was really handy was we had a really nice original eye in the cast, and I used that to mark a couple index marks across the very front corner and the very back on a level line. So I kind of made a level line through the eye, and that was very helpful when I came back to drill out the other eye so that I had it height-wise in the correct place, because what you'll find is once you start whittling away the plastic, all of a sudden you start wondering, oh my goodness, did I get this hole drilled in the right place? So I made those marks. I made it on both sides of the head, here and here, and then
Why don't you zoom in on that, the finished, it's not finished eye, but the finished eye. This is what we're going to try to show you how to do.
so we want to get
And
to
it's
there.
got a beautiful eye ring around it. It's got the live eye set in it.
And we started over here. Oops. That's
I know, it's hard.
very hard.
It's backwards.
As closely as she zoomed in. But that's what we started with. And we're going to do the same thing. Should we do it on a different one or the opposite
No, you
side
can do
of
anything
this?
you want. They'll get the idea.
Gotcha. So we'll leave that set there. And we will do that. And to do it, this eye is crowned or peaked on this side. And I'm going to, on this bird, I'm going to leave the good eye intact. And I'm going to, this other eye didn't come out of the mold quite as successfully. So I'm going to take that one down first. And then when we set the acrylic eye,
He's
we'll make
really,
it to
he's
match
really
this
nice
one.
because he didn't say Tom screwed up on this one. The other one came out good. This one did not come out of the mold as successfully.
So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to flatten this off, and the reason is because this little Dremel bit here happens to be really close to the correct diameter of our acrylic eye. But if I put that Dremel bit on top of that peak and try and set it on the center, it will want to wander like this. And so it will wallow out that eye orbit, and we'll have a great big eye. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to knock that down so I have a flat surface to work against. And I'm going to do that just quick with a little cut-saw bit, like so. You can do this with about any bit, but this one will go fast for us. So I'm just going to take the surface of the eye down and make a little bit of a flat spot without damaging any of the surrounding area.
And those cut-saw bits are extremely handy and they're carbide, and when they fill up or load up with material like plastic, you can soak them in lacquer thinner and it comes right out.
Yep,
And they're like brand new again.
Do you prefer the coarse or the fine?
I myself use a lot of coarse.
Yep.
Brett uses a lot of fine.
And that's fine.
I'm not patient for fine. I need it fast.
A little marker pencil. You don't happen to have a little pencil or a marker, do you?
I'm gonna.
And I'm going to, just to show you, I am going to mark that level line on both sides before I completely eliminate my reference point. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I should have that already. So, if you can see, Mandy, I am just going to come in right there in the front corner of the eye. I'm going to try to be very level while still showing you on camera. Basically a straight line right across there.
And all you're trying to do is kind of find center where to auger.
Yes. Yep. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but I'll show you this way so that I'm right in the front, straight across. So that way I don't have one eye higher than the other. I'm going to put this little mark here in the front, and then all the way through the eye itself and to the back. That way I have something to work off of for center. Okay, and now this bit is very close in size. This just came out of a variety pack of bits that come with your Dremel tools. And now I'm just going to open up that little eye socket and get that started. I may have to come back to this other bit, and in fact I'll do that. Put a little bit of a recess just so that bit doesn't wander. And it's probably very hard to see against this white material, but I'm using the impression of the original eye perimeter to know my shape.
And you could do the whole thing with that if you really wanted to, right?
You really could. I like this bit because it will give a flat back for our glass eye to fit against. But this works pretty well. This cuts all bits really nice to get us started. And now I'll go to this one. And to help you...
You're kind of like a gunslinger.
Why? 2 guns. That's right.
Everything he does.
I just got to get all that residue out of there so I can see. So that's the outside of where I want to be. And as you can see, this is going to be real close in size. And this is the time where we would want to be really careful to make sure that we have an accurate angle. So I'm trying to make this, the back of this eye conform to the angle that we're shooting for. I think that's going to be just not quite deep enough yet, but you want to tell them a little bit about their eye angle?
Birds to me are like, you ever fed a bird, a little bird, a baby bird or something like that, or you watched different birds in the yard? They always turn their head, to listen and things like that. And if you ever have a pet bird and you hold something out, they typically don't eat straight on. They turn a little bit to look because their eyes are so flat to their head. And not entirely, but you and I are kind of like fish people. Fish can see right out here where they're going to eat, and to me a bird is very similar. They will turn their head to get a better look. So for me, I want the eyes very flat to the head for peripheral vision behind them, but they've got to be able to see out here. So if you look at any of these birds, look at this wood duck here. One of you guys can zoom in on this. From the front, I always, when we're teaching students, I always say, can he see you from the front? So when we set eyes on a fish or on a bird, I'll hold them up like this and I'll say, can he see you? If he can see you, that's good. That's what we want for birds and fish. You want to be able to see that pupil. If you can see that pupil, he can see you. Another thing is their peripheral vision. Here's a henwood duck, nearly straight from the back, but I can tell I could not sneak up on that bird very well because I can see her pupil from the back. Yep. So they have great peripheral vision, which means that eye is very flat, but they do have to be able to see from the front. So if you look at a Corey's head, Wildlife Illusions head, he can see me. I can tell he can see me really well because you can see the pupil. If you can see the pupils, he can see you. Also, from behind, I can see the pupil. I can tell. I don't have to go very far from behind. I'm not going to sneak up on that little wood duck. Yep. That's my take on bird angles.
No, that's perfect. And that's, so what we're trying to do in grinding out the eye is make sure that we have the back of the eye orbit that will accept the eye on the proper angle. So if I were to get too much out of the front here, my eyes would be set too far forward, and he wouldn't be able to have the vision behind her.
Should I get you one of these?
Yeah.
Was this the other one?
That was the other one
don't
from
need
over
it.
here.
All right.
But that's okay.
Hand me your little snippers. These are live eyes, and they come with this little post on them.
They want to zoom in on that. That's we're going to take that off.
They're going to zoom in on my dirty fingers.
And those nails and your pearly white teeth.
So we're just going to snip this right off.
Nope, there it went. I got it.
Nice catch.
And that now has just a little bit of a bump on the back side of it, but pretty flat, pretty flat. And if we were to use the AB eye or the flex eye or a glass eye, this flat back would accept that. Because of this little tab that's on the back here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the middle of this eye orbit just a little bit so I can recess that.
A little lower for you.
But that's okay.
Nope,
I can.
it.
And it is. It's hard to get flat unless you were to grind it. So I'm just going to grind a spot here in the center of the eye. I don't know if anybody wants to show that, but I'm just going to take that a little bit down right in the middle. I'm not going very deep because it's not very far, but I am opening it up quite a bit so that I have some wiggle. I can move it up or down. Again, I don't know how well that shows against the white, but looks a little washed on our monitor. Then we can just set that eye right against there. And I can feel it's got to go down just a little bit more to fit in there.
Sure.
But that's...
And then you would set that in clay?
You could. If you were perfect in your angle, you could super glue it in. If your back was dremeled perfectly flat, the one I did earlier today, I had really close and then just decided to take a little bit more out of the front and I got it too deep. So I ended up putting a little bit of the two-part epoxy behind it, and that way I was able to push it in and get the exact angle that I wanted. But
And you can set your eyes in stoneware moist clay, critter
sure.
clay, any of those, but make sure that the bird gets mounted and that stays moist, otherwise it'll crumble out on you. We like to use the epoxies like Fixit Sculpt or Ricky Crane's clay, KLEI, is a great product, and that sets up fast. We kind of have been using a lot of it because it doesn't make us wait for it.
Yep.
And then, are we ready to do little eye rings?
Yeah, so once we got the eye set, and I will continue to, I'll open this up just a little bit more if you want to start them on how you made your eye rings. And then I might Dremel here.
Now, you can buy eye rings from, go ahead, you can go.
You sure?
Sure, I'll talk loud. Eye rings from different companies, but, and then you would open up your cavity for the eye to accept the eye ring and the eye. If you were to use the Wayne Cooper Flex Eye, which looks real nice, that has the eye ring, but it's got a pretty big orbit in it. So you're going to have to drill that much out of there. Then you could put the two together and snap them in and use your clay to blend that. We made these, and these were made out of Fixit Sculpt. And Fixit Sculpt is a two-part epoxy. I chose Fixit Sculpt because it's very white, light colored. And to mix Fixit Sculpt, I don't want to paint them later very much. I may color them slightly if I have to, but my choice is to have them colored when I make the membrane. Large gloves just aren't large anymore.
And that's nice to pre-color your epoxies because if they hit that color just perfect, then they can minimize their finish work and not get paint on their feathers.
And you get paint on your eyes and everything else.
Yes.
Whoa.
Maybe you're using medium. We do now sell 2X.
These are large.
We sell 2X.
I want them. Okay, I'm going to take, just to get equal amount, or get something suitable to mix, I probably have a small marble size of A, small marble size of B. Now, mix them together. I'm also going to add some Winsor Newton crimson color oil paint. Like so.
Fig's cousin?
What's that?
Windsor. Is that Fig's cousin?
Maybe. And it doesn't take very much. And that's why the rubber gloves. If you don't use rubber gloves when you're adding paint to your epoxy, it's going to get under your fingernails and you'll have it there for a month. Then when you chew your fingernails, it gets in your teeth, your red teeth.
Gets in your
But you can see it coloring this, and it will dry to a little bit darker hue than what I have here, but I would like it a little bit redder. And I'm probably putting in a half of a pea.
Of the oil paint?
I did that twice, so I have a whole pea.
Of the fig.
Winsor Newton
of the
paint,
fig.
yep.
Windsor, not fig. Now,
Okay.
while you're mixing that, I can show them. I got that eye to fit.
Yep, good.
Accidentally. And you can see from straight on, I can use this eye as a reference to how deep to set this eye. And I can also use it to make sure that I'm good from straight on. If I look straight on, I don't have one higher than the other. We're pretty pretty good there.
And it's been my experience to set one eye, then match the other eye, do one eye ring, then match the other eye
Yep.
ring.
So we'll get this completely set, then I would Dremel this one down and get it set all the way against the back plate on the back side so that this one matches this one. Should I put just a spot of super glue on this for you?
Yes, or I can do one of these guys too.
Oh,
Doesn't
yeah,
matter,
go
that
ahead
one's
and-
good. That
that's
one's
fine.
good. Now, this is way too soft to use. It's right now. So what I like to do is I like to make myself little pieces like this, and I just laid them on the table, and that gave me, it's gonna be hard because these were set up an hour ago. That gave me a whole bunch of these little guys. And then I'll take those and I start rolling them out. Oops, I'm gonna need the other side of the paper. Now, many of you, I haven't heard any questions or anything. Is nobody
know.
watching? Many of you might have a better way of doing this. Don't be afraid to chime in. Okay, now be careful on the thickness of your eye ring membrane. Wood ducks have a pretty hefty eye ring, but it's easy to overbuild it.
And worth mentioning too, in this instance, we're probably not going to use the skin that we left on the skin side, are we?
No, and make sure you flush that off.
Right. So they'll have to cut that off. We don't have to wrap the skin around this. We're going to leave it, we're going to cut it off completely with a little.
Now, these have been mixed, the epoxy has been mixed and the color added from before we started the show. Yes, Caitlin? Oh,
She's just showing you a camera.
oh.
It's like a little earthworm.
Okay, now I will make a whole lot of these. Just because if you make two and you only need two, one won't be the right size. So I crossed them over like that to what I think is the right size. Then I'm going to cut it off, which kind of fuses them together. And I will make many of them. If I'm going to do wood duck eyes, first off, I would like to have several rather than just two. And as long as I'm doing it, I might as well keep going and keep going and keep going because it doesn't take any amount of time to put these together. Now these have sat for a while, they're not going to want to stick. That one's kind of hard, all right.
So
But
that
anyway.
was one that you had mixed up quite some time ago.
Now, once they're set up, I will just take them off the paper like that. And I would just lay him on here.
My super glue didn't work real good, so don't tip that too much.
On your eye?
Yeah.
And then, now this is pretty hard because
Can
this,
you angle toward me a little bit? So
like
I can,
that,
or turn your body?
as good as you're going to get.
Close up on you. Looks good.
Oh, that looks really good.
That looks good. So you're using paintbrush with water right now?
I'm using a paintbrush with water, and I'm just putting that eye ring around the eye.
I'm pretty sure the FBI could verify your identity from that photo of your fingerprints.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's close, isn't it?
Don't move out of my lens. That's skewed.
Now, I'll let this sit. Oh, the eye's moving out. I'd let that sit for a while, and then, like this one was already too hard to do, and that's been maybe an hour, hour and a half or so. Some of these were a little bit, here's a nice softer one. But once I put it on there, I would let it sit for maybe another 45 minutes and keep checking them, don't leave them. And then we'll come in with, I don't know if I can do it yet, come in with a knife, and I would start putting my detail in the lid. Yeah, we're gonna have to super glue. It's not gonna wanna stay, but we'll
Would you do
pretend it
that
is.
anyway with, as far as the Euro eyes in Corey's head snap in? Like, you don't need super glue, but would you say that for, on the DIY style, when you're using the flat back and or the Euro, or the live eyes, would you need to glue or anything else?
It's added insurance. I think most of them snap in pretty good, but it's not a bad idea, especially when you're going to the detail of putting on an eye ring. You don't want it to move.
Now, something else on any of these bird heads, the real bird blinks from the bottom up. So just like you have a crease on the top, that's where your eyelid extra skin goes. A bird has that underneath. On any of the Wildlife Illusions bird heads, Corey has sculpted that in. So many of you mount birds and you don't know what to do with that cottony skin, on that cottony fluff underneath there. It's because the real bird, when he opens his eye, it goes into a crease down here.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you have that on your bird head and that you tuck that skin in there. That way you won't have that cottony skin. I mean, it took me a long time to figure out, what do I do with this cottony fluff under the eye? So anyway, this is how I would put that on. And it's real easy to make a good wood duck eye ring, but it's harder to make two wood duck eye rings.
That's very true. Harder to make two of anything, even symmetrical.
And you don't have to open them up like he saw Casper the Ghost. And then you're going to take your A tool, doesn't have to be a knife, I'm just using a little knife tip to make those little striations in here.
I used a Euro pin. That
Sure.
seemed to work really good too. And you can soften those with a brush.
And now that color might not be exactly the color I want, but it'll be real easy to paint it if I have to, once it's already red like this.
And just one final little detail also, Mandy, if you can get in here close.
Oh, to you?
There is just a little bit of, oh my gosh, look how close that is. Room right in the very front here, in the front corner of the eye, right there. A bird also has a nictitating membrane just like a deer. So we've got some room right there that we need to build the nictitating membrane, and I will grab a picture and try and show you that in a reference photo as well. There we go. So we still have that detail to bring in. You can see that little black edge there.
And what are you going to make that out of?
She's just full of questions. I think we'll do that with epoxy. We'll put that in place. Another observation from this picture is the pupil, like we've talked with several other animals recently, the pupil orients itself a little bit high in the eye orbit. So notice that in this picture, the pupil's just a touch high. And you can accomplish that with the way you put your eye ring on.
All right, hold it still.
Now this is what, I don't know if I can
Yeah,
hold.
look at that.
Looks nice.
And I can see him from the front. Can he see you? I bet he can see the camera from the front.
Yep.
And he can see a little bit from the back too. So that's what we would do for wood duck.
Yep, yep.
That's how we make, there's a lot of different ways to make the eye rings. We used to take thread, remember we used to take different kinds of threads and we would rub red epoxy sculpt into it and then we would cross it over and snip it off, glue thread on. That never worked very good. Rolling out the little pieces of epoxy sculpt seems to work the best for us, but if you're gonna do it one time, it's hard to do. If I was gonna make wood duck eye rings and I had 6 wood ducks to do, I would probably do 6 heads at one time. It's way easier.
Yeah, this works very, very well, but there are 100 different ways. I've seen people take the flex eye ring, Dremel the back out of it, put their own eye in it, set it in place. Lots of different ways to go about that, but it is an important feature to a wood duck, and you're gonna, as you look at more and more birds, there's an eye ring on just about every bird of some kind. Wood duck, it's the most predominant, so we chose to show you that one. But
And what do you girls have for us?
There's a lot.
We didn't give you much time.
You didn't. I gotta go get kids actually here shortly. But we have a couple exciting and a couple new things and a couple information-wise. But Canada, to all our Canadian customers, big exciting news for you guys. We are now approved, Dawn has been working very hard on this, and we are now approved to ship ORMD materials across the border. So,
And that's huge.
It's huge.
What is ORMD, just for those that don't know?
Other regulated materials, materials that have limited quantity of hazardous material. I knew you were gonna ask that.
We can't ship a barrel of hazardous material across, but limited quantities we can.
And so now,
Limited
Controlled.
barrels?
Huh?
Limited barrels?
Yeah,
so
limited
for
barrels.
all you people in Canada that can't get lacquer paints, glues, adhesives, master blend, bird feet injection fluid, any aerosols, Trubon, Crotan, call us up, thank Dawn for it on the phone, and we will get it to you. The freight is very reasonable, the turnaround time is great, so check that out. New ghost hangers, did you grab any by chance?
Nope.
We have the new retro ghost hanger in, and that you'll see advertised, but that, one thing that we're doing that other companies you won't see from is we're selling them in dozens as well, so you'll get to save a little bit on cost.
The ghost hangers are a really neat way to mount your bird to the wall without having to have a whole lot of driftwood or,
Like that
you know,
mallard over
different
there.
kind of things like that.
Black duck.
That mallard would look great, that black duck would look great on a ghost hanger.
Kind of hidden hanger, but right now we have the retro hanger in stock and ready. We're gonna have the push down and then the original 10-inch. And, so you can call for that. Back in stock, we have back in stock is our urethane foam. All of it is back in stock, and there's no, not putting any limits on anybody, but don't treat it like toilet paper.
No hoarding.
Polycast, we got the Polycast in, the 12 gauge galvanized wire, 14 gauge annealed wire, the LT 934 Gold Sparkle, Pro 1 Degreaser, all our cover grass. Cover grass is back in stock,
wow.
so for those that like
Cover
the
grass
natural.
is a real popular item, and a lot of people doing big dioramas love cover grass. It covers a large area at a minimum cost.
Yeah.
Shows this weekend, you have the California and Wyoming, which both have the professional and masters. So check those out if you're gonna be there. World Show. We just got news that the World Show has been postponed to May 3rd and 7th, 2022. For those that were planning to go to the World Show, it is now postponed. They're still gonna have it in Springfield, Missouri, but it's May 3rd through the 7th, 2022. So mark that down on your calendar.
So it just took its old spring calendar slot, the first week of May, and they've pushed it to next year rather than having it in the fall of this year.
And Nationals is still on, which is July 22nd and 24th. So keep that in mind. New and exciting are books. We put together some great books. Dan Vrips takes amazing crystal clear images. You guys have his deer books already. This is a new one. So if
Look
you
at that.
have the other 3 deer
That's
books,
cool.
this
That
is
is
one
very
you do
cool.
not have, but it's just more photos that he passed on to us, and we kind of shared it. So if you like those books, these images are not duplicated in the other deer ones. So
Those are
check
the
those
best.
out.
I love that picture. That is a great picture.
I don't want to get it on my.
Not only the deer, but Phil Wilson, he has CDs, and we put those into books as well. And we have an antelope close-up. We have the antelope all around, a bobcat close-up, bobcat all around, elk eye and ear, elk bugling nose, elk all around, mule deer close-up, and mule deer all around. And these were kind of, we got them to see what we were thinking. There's a couple pictures we're gonna switch out, so these are not the final ones, but we have a select few in stock. So first come, first serve on these ones, and the price is $39.95 usually. We're doing the first batch that we have, because we're switching out some pictures, for $25. So huge savings for those that want to take advantage of that. Again, first come, first serve on them, but we have a wide variety for you
Great
guys on that.
pictures, exceptional pictures.
Neat stuff.
Look at the eye pictures of the elk.
The bugling elk one is really good with the nose and open mouth and stuff. The bobcat was a good.
Very
one.
good.
So
Wow, look at that eye.
take advantage of your
at
reference
that.
material.
Yeah.
And this is what Brian Olson says, the one on the left. You notice that pupil, as he's bending down, that pupil stays.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just like the deer picture we have
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Are we giving anything away?
We are.
What are we
We
giving
are.
I think we're giving a Wildlife Illusions wood duck head
That is correct.
with eyes.
Yes, that is correct. And the winner of that goes to John Peslis. And John won this week's giveaway by sharing and liking last week's live video. So make sure to share and like this week's live video to be entered in next week's giveaway.
Congratulations, John. And you're gonna get a Wildlife Illusions wood duck head just like this with eyes. You can put your own eye rings on, just like we showed you today.
Yeah.
Heath is wondering if you've ever made eye rings with hot glue, then painted them.
Oh, man.
That'd be hard for me.
I would think you'd have to have the right nozzle.
I bet there's people that do a beautiful job
I
of
bet-
it.
Yeah, I bet there are. Not one that I've tried, but
Right.
certainly something that you guys could give a go.
Too bad you don't have eye rings, huh?
I know.
Yeah, coming.
Coming soon
Coming soon.
to a Matuska supply company near you. I gotta go get kids. Good work.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Give us a call.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, girls.
Yeah, see you next week.